In this update, we're tracking two main storm systems that's going to bring a ton of snow and several rounds of severe storms over the course of the next 7 days, plus a very preliminary look at your solar eclipse forecast. So let's take a look at the setup for today, for your Sunday, March the 24th. Yeah, we've got a powerful low pressure. This is the upper level low down to 978 millibar. This is the culprit that's bringing all the heavier winds to the Texas Panhandle into Oklahoma, and then all the blizzard-like conditions for Nebraska. This will continue to lift it off to the northeast, bringing a swath of heavy snow through the Dakotas, as well as into Minnesota, as well as into Wisconsin. But later on this afternoon, we are going to have severe storms that's going to break out across western Kansas into Oklahoma. Those will weaken as they get into Texas into the overnight hours with the squall line and continue to move off to the east and regenerate back into the southeast with another round of severe storms as they continue pushing off to the east. So I appreciate all my subscribers out there. If you are new to the channel and like detailed weather breakdowns, hit the subscribe button and you're in. You get all my daily content on this channel, and I would love to reach 250,000 subscribers by the end of April, and you can help me get there by subscribing to the channel and following all my daily breakdowns. So let's take a look at the snow swath that we've been highlighting over the past couple of days for the Northeast, and man, it every bit did come to fruition. We are advertising 18 to 24 inches in some of these isolated areas. Wow, that definitely verified up there into Vermont, into New Hampshire, as well as into Maine here. We've got some 28-inch totals into Albany, New Hampshire, back into Landgrove, Vermont. We had 32 inches, and it really overperformed there in northern Illinois. There was a swath of about 8 to 10 inches of snow in far extreme portions of northern Illinois, but you can see the sharp gradient. If you lived like 50 miles south of there, you got nothing, right? So you've already picked up some good snows into portion north of Minneapolis here and back into Wisconsin, and there's going to be more snow on the table. Here's the latest hazard map update, and it is very busy, folks. That orange there, that is blizzard conditions, folks. Yeah, into Nebraska, the winds are really going to be whipping. Unfortunately, red flag warnings down there into the Texas Panhandle, far extreme portions of West Texas, fire weather watches in place, numerous high wind warnings in place for Texas into the southeast, as well as in the middle of the country. But there's all the pink. That's the winter storm warnings in place with all the heavier snows. It's going to unload into Montana, through the Dakotas, as well as into Minnesota and into Wisconsin. And then, yes, later on this afternoon, we are going to be talking about rounds of severe storms that likely breaks out about 4 o'clock this afternoon. It could be pretty bumpy in their western Kansas, western Oklahoma from about 4 to 10 o'clock. So we're going to dive deeper in the forecast. But first, a word from my sponsor.
Frustrated with scattered finances, I sought a solution to unify my spendings, savings, and income. Today's video sponsor, Rocket Money. Help me be smarter with my money. Rocket Money is a personalized finance app that helps you cancel subscriptions, lower bills, and manage money better. I'm using Rocket Money to cancel streaming services I don't even use. It safely and securely identifies recurring charges and cancels unwanted subscriptions for you. You can even cancel from the app with just a couple of taps. No need to worry about customer service calls. I'm using Rocket Money to set budgets. Understanding where we spend money allows us to find out where we can cut costs, which helps us with our spending goals. The cool thing is, Rocket Money has helped save its customers an average of $720 a year, with over 500 million in canceled subscriptions. To save more, spend less, join the over 5 million members using Rocket Money today. Go to rocketmoney.com/ponder or click the link in the description to get started for free. You could also unlock even more features with premium. That's rocketmoney.com/ponder to get started for free.
So let's take a look at the severe threat. So I've kind of expanded the view and put in all three modes of severe storms on one frame here, and they do in fact have that slight risk elevated into western Kansas, western Oklahoma. We do have an elevated tornado threat within this region, and we have an isolated tornado hail threat as well. Some of those hailstones can be pretty big. We're talking golf ball size hail potentially into western Kansas, western Oklahoma. Definitely lighter amounts, smaller hail, mainly a gustier wind of threat as this moves through Texas. It's going to be an overnight setup, so really not experiencing, maybe in West Texas, you could get some marginally induced hail, but once you get into the Dallas-Fort Worth area, those will likely weaken and just be producing a kind of a broken squall line into the overnight hours tonight. But as we get into tomorrow, I think they do refire again once they hit into the southeast region. We do, in fact, have pretty much the entire state of Louisiana under that slight risk for some larger hail and definitely some isolated tornadoes there into Louisiana, as well as into Mississippi and back into Arkansas. This is the more favored area that you could be looking at some little isolated spin-ups, larger hail, and definitely some gustier winds within this region. That will be on Monday. But overall, here's the breakdown over the next 48 hours. So here's the helicity tracks. This kind of gives you an idea of where the greatest updrafts will be. So that would include potentially some larger hail and possibly a spin-up tornado. So right there into western Kansas, they do have some elevated numbers there. So the colors are a little bit elevated, telling you, hey, we could be looking at a little bit higher updrafts within that region as that swings through southern Oklahoma. Definitely some lighter instability down there into Texas. A little bit greater concern as you swing through portions of Louisiana, but especially there into Mississippi, into central and southern Mississippi. There they could be looking at some larger hail and definitely possible a spin up tornado or two within that Monday time frame. But overall, it's going to be a pretty busy setup over the next 48 hours. We got the low pressure center right now highlighted just north of the Texas Panhandle. That's going to be weakening, but it's going to be shifting off to the northeast. That's the culprit northwest of the boundary, bringing all the heavier snows, the blinding winds, the heavier snowfall. And then further off to the east, that's where we've got more of the instability in western Kansas, western Oklahoma, down there in North Texas, and they shift off to the east. So heavier rain amounts as you go into East Texas, and definitely as you swing through areas of Louisiana and back through Mississippi. I think it's mainly just rain, not too much severe as you swing into portions of Alabama and especially into Georgia there. But further north, it's just going to be more of a squall line that will be moving through Arkansas, through Illinois, back into Indiana. And the further off to the east you get, the lower the instability it's going to be. So, but the winds are going to be cranking, right? So this is just your wind gust over the next 48 hours, folks. Yeah, there's a lot of orange showing up on the map. That's why they've got numerous high wind watches and warnings in place. A lot of 50-mile-per-hour wind gusts definitely showing up. Definitely not out of the question. Some isolated reports of some 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts, especially there in Tennessee going into tomorrow afternoon. So yes, it's definitely going to be a bumpy ride on the wind front. So if you're a truck driver out there, just be on high alert, because yeah, it's just going to be pretty bumpy ride as you swing across the country trying to mess with this terrain, because it's a pretty powerful mid-level system. So here's the snowfall. This is the latest update over the next 48 hours. I kind of already showed you what's already unfolded across the Northeast, and as well as some of those areas into the upper Midwest. This is added totals, right? This is adding to those totals that I actually already showed you. So there's the swath that's coming out of the low pressure center. Then once this hits Nebraska, that's where those blizzard-like conditions will unfold. And yeah, some of those areas, possibly north of the Minneapolis region, could pick up an additional 12 to 18 inches. Those areas in, say, Duluth, Minnesota could be under that bullseye with some of that heavier snow, so those higher totals. And that will swing through central and northern Wisconsin. They could also get in the action of some 1-foot totals the further north you live up there into Wisconsin, but not expecting much more snow into Michigan. If you do see anything, it's definitely going to be just a dusting to possibly 1 inch, but it's a pretty healthy cold blast that will be coming in on the backside, and it's going to feel a little bit more like winter, all right, as more than spring, because these are your wind chills going into Tuesday morning, the 26th. You're going to feel it. Some of these areas are actually going to be feeling below zero with that snowpack on the ground. So it's definitely not going to be looking like spring at any stretch of the imagination. Further south, even into Oklahoma, you could even get some freezing wind chills just north of the Texas, Dallas region, as well as into Amarillo. But the cold front will continue to shift east, but it'll definitely moderate and it'll eventually kind of wind itself down. And there's not much cold air that will be sneaking into the southeast at all. But they will get the rain, and I think it's lighter amounts going into Tuesday. Not really too much concerned about severe storms. These are more or less borderline marginal severe storms as you swing through Alabama and back into Georgia as this more of a gustier wind threat. As the low pressure center, now will be a 993 millibar, will continue to wind down and just wring itself out with more snow on the backside of that low pressure. So it's already snowing for those areas in Minnesota, so expect it to continue really for about another 2 days before it really kind of winds down. But we're going to fast forward because we're going to already look at another system that's going to be swinging in, coming in off the West Coast. So sometimes you get in these 7-day cycles, and it's, you know, these systems swing off the East Coast. They have time to regenerate, recoup the atmosphere in the middle of the country. Then we possibly have another trough that will be diving in. This would be Easter, folks, and this could be a more significant trough again, diving in off the West Coast, another colder shot of air, and at the same time, these temperatures are going to be elevated. So you got the cold front that will be moving through Tuesday into Wednesday. That will modify. So you have all day Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and even into Sunday. By the time we get into Easter, much of the middle of the country and much of the central and eastern 2/3 of the U.S. is going to be experiencing well above average temperatures again, while we're dealing with another more significant trough off the West Coast, bringing another cold blast and another chance as this kind of merges together of more snow. And a lot of the same areas could be more of a kind of a deja vu type setup as instability does come back. So this would be Easter. So this would be after this comes through, we'll have to be more concerned about, again, of a second even powerful system that will be originating for your Easter weekend. So we could be looking at more severe storms possibly on Easter for Texas and to Oklahoma, back through Kansas again, maybe even swing as far north as Missouri. But to the northwest again, we've got another powerful low pressure center, and already the Climate Prediction Center is highlighting a slight to moderate risk for heavy snowfall. So more ton of snow will be on the table coming through Colorado there, back through Nebraska, and back to the South Dakota region, and back into Minnesota again. So yeah, the pattern is definitely changing as the El Nino is weakening. And these are areas that typically do get, I mean, March is your heavier snowfall for Colorado there. So yeah, it's every bit coming to fruition, and that would be your Easter weekend, folks, for that time frame. But again, we go into these possible 7-day cycles, and this is a kind of a very preliminary look, because one question I've been getting a lot is, what's the forecast for the solar eclipse, which isn't until April the 8th. We're good about 15 days away. So again, take this with a grain of salt. We're very preliminary. But again, I mentioned the 7-day cycles because it could potentially look at, you know, because we're looking at the ensembles. That one swings through Easter weekend, possibly moves off the East Coast, right? Pattern regenerates again for those first couple of days of April. And then there we go again, possibly by the Sunday, April the 7th time frame. Again, 7-day cycles potentially. Raining this Sunday, raining this possibly next Sunday, possibly raining again this, you know, the April the 7th Sunday, as this trough will be hanging off the West Coast. But the eclipse is on the 8th, not the 7th, right? So this is the 7th, would be potentially pretty wet. Now, again, these are ensembles, kind of gives you a better feel. Take this with a grain of salt because weather's all about timing. We can really give you kind of a true forecast once we get within about a week out. So some of these extended models are just now coming into range. And I mentioned the 7-day cycles because that is pretty prevalent. Sometimes the weather kind of repeats itself every 7 days, and since the new trend is going to be likely on Sunday, Monday timeframe, we could be looking at a same type setup over the next couple of weeks, and that's what exactly the ensemble guidance is looking at. So yeah, if the eclipse was on that Sunday, April the 7th, this would not be a good thing because there's actually some rain showers around through Texas, through those areas into Arkansas, all the way up into Kentucky, through Indiana, and even going into Maine. So you wouldn't probably see too much of the eclipse. And here's the path on April 8, right? So it's going to be originating. This is the path of totality. So it's overall 3 hours within that totality, but the actual totality, 100% totality, is around 3 to 4 minutes. And it really originates around 12:30 time frame, 12 to 12:30, really maximizes in San Antonio around 1:30 in the afternoon, swings through Dallas and all the way up into Indiana, and eventually heading off into New England. So really it kind of boils down to what's not only what the weather is going to be like on that day, but what's the weather going to be like within those 3 hours, really. And it really comes down to cloud cover, and that could be even more fine-tuned. So again, take this with a grain of salt. This is the latest GFS update. Obviously this is going to change, but one thing about these systems that you'll notice, once that little cool front comes through, you do get clearing on the backside, which we are going to see, say for example in Texas on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. It's going to be really nice weather. So if we can time these systems out right, as we have maybe instability move through, because April is one of those months that it's actually pretty stormy, it's pretty wet, it's pretty cloudy, and actually the odds of having clear skies, for example in Dallas, are about 13%. Not very good, folks. So we're not talking about, slam dunk forecast, but right now, if we could time this system through, it could potentially be clear if you do time it up properly with a cold front coming and clearing those skies in the backside. But you can see definitely as the totality path goes through Indiana and Kentucky and all the way up into Pennsylvania and through Maine, they might be dealing with some more cloud cover. So we're definitely going to be fine-tuning this. Like I mentioned, we're going to have more of a better grasp on potentially what the solar eclipse outlook would be about a week out. But as far as cloud cover goes, you really got to be about within 2 days to give you more of an accurate depiction on what it maybe could be looking like, within that 3-hour time slot for that April the 8th. So guys, I appreciate you guys watching. Do like this video, definitely hit the subscribe button, and catch the next update where I protect you before and after the storm.